you've been feeling the call to write a book, it is no accident. Your book is needed in the world, so let's make it happen. I'm Nicola Humber, and this is the Unbound Writers Club. Hello and welcome to the Unbound Writers Club. Today feels like a full cycle moment because my guest in the Unbound Writers Club is the author of our very first release at the Unbound Press, Dr. Jennifer M. Booker. So Jennifer's book, The New Normal, coming out as transgender in midlife, was our very first release back in 2019. Early 2019. And when she reached out to say she had written a manuscript which was about reimagining the U.S. Constitution, it was called Idiot Proofing Democracy. Would we be interested in publishing it? I was like, hell yes. That sounds like it's right up our street. And when I read it, I was even more of a hell yes. You know, Jennifer's is one of the voices that I see, that I hear, that we need so very much in the world right now. And it is such an honor and delight to have her as part of the Unbound Press family of authors. We actually first met back in 2018 at Mama Gina's Mastery event in New York City. And as soon as I saw Jennifer, it was like, I need to get to know that woman some more. So I'm just glad that we're still in touch all these years later. And I'm excited for you to listen into this conversation. So without further ado, let's dive in. So Jennifer, Sister Goddess, author of the very first release at the Unbound Press. Welcome back to the Unbound Writers Club.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to have this conversation today. I was just saying before we hit record, I was just so delighted that you've chosen to publish your second book with us. Quite different from the first one, but we will get into that. And it feels very timely at the moment. But I generally begin these conversations by asking the same question, which is, what in particular makes you an unbound writer? Do you feel there's anything that you're doing differently when it comes to writing your books, or I guess the kind of books that you feel called to write as well?
I think the main thing that really draws me is that there's a little bit of danger involved in what I'm writing. And that has made me look for a place where it feels safe to write about them and get it published.
Yeah.
The fact that you're in England makes a difference because there is so much oppression in the United States right now that it's like, I don't know if that would really be a good place to do this. And my first book was a very sensitive subject as well, of course, being autobiographical and very intimate. And so I've really been looking for safe space, and that's what the Unbound Press has provided.
Beautiful. You say like a little bit dangerous, what you're writing. I mean, it could feel very dangerous to be writing this book and your first book as well. Like there could be a lot of danger attached to both of them, you know, feeling really risky for you to put yourself out there in this way. And well, what called you in particular to write this book?
Well, this one started out mainly out of, well, I'm a bit of an education junkie. And after I finished my doctorate in 2011, I paused for a good 6 months before I went back to school on my own. And I had been curious about running for office. And so, being the overeducated human being that I am, I got enrolled as an undergraduate major in political science. And so I took some of the basic foundation courses in political science, American government, international government. And those were horrible professors. Oh my gosh, they were dreadful. And so I switched over to a much more interesting subject, namely psychology. But I kept toying in the back of my mind with it. And so I started making notes to myself here and there because I've had a blog site for since about that time period is when I started it to keep track of some of the stuff that I had written for classes. So
Mm.
originally I called it and still named socialsciencepapers.wordpress.com. And so I started like, oh, didn't I write about such and such? Like once I wrote a revised statement of the Equal Rights Amendment. And the Equal Rights Amendment was just this really straightforward thing about gender identity. And it was like, well, what if you did more than that?
Mm.
Ooh. And so I started toying with more ideas and much more recently, about 2 or 3 years ago, I even came up, there was a terrible quote, like several others from the current president, that had to do with calling people like liberal vermin. He
Oh,
started calling everybody who disagreed with him vermin.
oh my goodness.
And so I decided to turn that into something even sillier, and I created the Liberal Vermin Party.
You crack me up.
And, so I started writing, well, if I was doing that, then what would that look like? And I
Hmm.
started writing a constitution for the Liberal Vermin Party.
Amazing.
And then I finally realized, well, it's really hard for people to take you seriously with such a ridiculous name. So I got rid of that part, and that became the foundation of this book, was trying to capture my ideals about what would happen if we really decided that we wanted to explore and let people develop their own skills and abilities and interests without complete and utter panic of I'm going to wind up homeless on the street, I'm going to get
Mm.
thrown in jail because the current administration doesn't like me, all that kind of stuff. So basically a wildly liberal point of view. I think that's a safe understatement.
Yeah.
uh, and that's what led to this, was turning it into, okay, so if we don't want this to sound too much like an insurrection, how do we tweak it so that it is more palatable?
Yeah.
And so I started throwing in phrasing to say, well, conceivably, this could be a really big amendment to the current Constitution for the United States. Boy, would that be huge. Or it could even be used by other organizations. Like there are a bunch of territories for the United States that are in the Pacific region that nobody pays attention to, like Guam and stuff like that. And you only might have heard of them from World War II.
Yeah.
And they're horribly treated. And so the whole part of the point was that, hey, what would happen if those territories became their own state and gathered together for their own resources? They could use this too. And so that all led to the foundation for this book.
Amazing. Amazing. And how long did it take you to actually write the book? I mean, it's such an incredible piece of work. When I read it, and also our amazing author relations magician at the Unbound Press, we were like, wow, this book, like we learned a lot. Because we're not taught anything really about the American Constitution in the UK when we're at school. And it was so, so interesting to read your book and your take on it and your suggestions. It was like, wow, like to be honest, like when I first came to it, I was like, am I going to get this? Because, I'm not from the States. But actually, it really, really spoke to me. And like I said, and to Em as well, we were fascinated. So, how long did it take you to actually put it together, Jennifer?
Well, some of the early writings I did, like I started throwing down some of the essays that I wrote were like, oh, here's what I think about gun control, because that's always been a huge issue here.
Yeah.
And I started putting together a little collection of, oh, here's what I think about a few other subjects. And those actually kind of fed into this. And now some of the earliest were around 2012.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
the earliest actual draft, when I started the whole liberal vermin
Mhm.
aspect of it, was more like 2013 or so. So it's still been, it's or about 2023. These years go by so
I was
fast.
going to say.
Was about 2 or 3 years ago that
Yeah,
I started writing those down. And actually, that was the earliest draft I could find of the Constitution I wrote for that. And it was like 8 pages. And it's like, here's some ideas. Let's see what happens to this. And
amazing.
this is what it be turned into.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I mean, were there any particular fears or doubts that came up for you about actually publishing this book at this time? Like, I mean, divisive, the way the world is at the moment, like, particularly in the States, there is so much division. How did it feel to actually think about publishing this book?
And that's also been a little bit of stressful in the background
Yeah,
because in order to publish something like this, you have to realize that there are dangers, just
yeah,
like there are dangers when I came out as transgender.
totally.
And you have to decide, is it worth doing this as your part? And
Hmm.
so the dedication that I put in for this was based on one of the resistance fighters from World War II who did all of this stuff in Bavaria, I believe, primarily to try to fight against the Germans as they were coming into power.
Mm.
And for her trouble, she was executed when she was like 22 years old.
Oh my God.
But it's like you realize that you have to take a chance
Hmm.
on there being a backlash. And as we've seen in the last week here in the United States with
Absolutely.
Charlie Kirk, it's like, yeah, you could even be executed by somebody because you're not fascist enough. What? That makes no sense. Okay, crazy, crazy stuff going on that
Yeah.
people have been, spreading all these different perspectives that are just truly horrible against most of the people. And so, what I really wanted to emphasize in this was that, hey, I think there is tremendous potential in everybody, not just white men. What a shocking
Shocking
liberal concept.
perspective.
What would happen if we created an environment that wasn't ruled by billionaires and
Mm,
put limits on people staying in office for 30 or 40 years?
yeah.
And so there's a tremendous amount of effort to say, this is my borderline utopian vision
Yeah.
of what this can turn into.
Which is what we need, isn't it? You know, we need these utopian visions. Absolutely. And what I love about you, one of the things I love about you, Jennifer, is your humor. And that comes through in the book. Like, it's just, yeah, at times during the book, it's like I could just hear your voice. It's like we were sat across the table from each other and you were, sharing your perspective and that, yeah, that humor, that light touch really, really
It
came
is.
through.
Yeah, my favorite was the silly story about the early 1800s when a couple of European countries decided, well, we need to plant more trees because we're going to need them to build our warships. And and nobody used wood for warships after about 1860, but the trees didn't mature until the 20th century, 21st century. And it's like, well, it was a really good idea at the time.
Oh,
We have some beautiful forests of oak trees as a result.
exactly. It's all good. It's all good. What has been the response so far? Obviously, as we're recording this, it's the release date for the book, but I know you've been talking about it and beginning to share about the book. What kind of response have you received?
Well, it's been interesting because when I wrote my first book, it wasn't very hard to find friends that would give review comments for
Yeah.
it. And some of them were academic background, and some of them were friends I knew from other places.
Mm,
And I got a fair bit of feedback that way. And there was just dead silence when I proposed getting review comments. And that's
yeah.
why there aren't any in the
Yeah.
back of this book,
Yeah.
because, like, nobody would do it. I even wrote to like political science professors and other people that were in that field to see if any of them would be interested. And of course, nobody spoke up for that either. So I think there's a bit of fear surrounding the subject of saying anything that is, as we call it now, woke.
Yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to what, being sound asleep? I don't know. Um, but yeah, the fact that nobody would touch it for reviews, even people that knew me very well, just completely shied away from it, and I thought that was really kind of bizarre.
Well, I mean, how has that been for you? Like to not have that kind of feedback?
Well, fortunately, having already written and published a book, I had a fair bit of confidence in my writing.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I can just go ahead and say what I want to say and go through it 60 million times. And I still found a few things that I didn't include. Like there were subjects that came up recently, like people were going to redefine congressional districts in between censuses. Is that a plural? Yes. And and you're not supposed to do that. You're only supposed to define the boundaries like of a representative state when we have had a every 10 years
Mm,
census. And then all of a sudden, these people are coming along saying, well, we really need to redefine those boundaries. And they start drawing these ridiculous shapes for their boundaries so that they systematically exclude everybody that they don't like, which
mm,
is unfortunately a lot of people.
yeah.
And so, that I even threw an addendum on my website just because of that, because there were so many subjects that have come up recently because of the current administration that it's like, well, some of these weren't necessarily addressed directly in the book itself. So I gave a place to give air to those as well without trying to rewrite the entire book again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe there'll be another edition at some point,
Yeah,
but
second edition. If after it goes on the bestseller list, then maybe I'll
totally.
consider that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And, there's a lot of scope, obviously, for discussion and things will be changing all the time. So, the fact that you have the website and you can add to that. And I mean, hopefully, you'll be able to have more conversations around the book once it starts making its way into the world, Jennifer. I mean, are you going to stand for office?
Well, I did
Please.
toy with it once. I actually tried doing it under the Green Party, and they said, no, no, we already have somebody else for that position we want to run. And it's like, yeah, yeah, that's nice. But it's also hard because there's a lot of resistance within the so-called Democratic Party
Hmm.
to doing anything that is too far away from moderate.
Yeah.
And that's part of the fundamental problem that this addresses, is that everything gets decided by the middle of the political spectrum.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I got from my academic work on was that, oh yeah, and that's not no big surprise to a lot of people, but it also means that if you have any kind of viewpoint that is not kind of wishy-washy in the middle, then nobody cares what you have to say.
Mm, yeah.
Which is kind of sad, because it's like, okay, you're not going to get an extreme liberal or an extreme conservative to suddenly change views.
Yeah.
Um, so it's been a little bit weird that way.
Oh, well, I would love it if you ran for office, Jennifer. Jennifer for president. That's what I
Yeah,
say.
right.
Let's make it
We'll skip
happen.
all the little stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, if someone's listening to this and they're feeling called to write a book that maybe feels quite edgy or dangerous, even, what kind of advice would you give them? Because, you've been through this process twice now with these really, really pioneering books, which, I'm so grateful that you're part of the Unbound Press family. What one piece of advice would you give to somebody who's thinking of going on this journey?
Well, to borrow a brand I don't actually wear, just do it.
Yeah. What brand could that be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think of a
Yeah.
check mark. But yeah, I mean, if it's something that's really important to you and it's close to your heart or close to your soul or close to your mind, and you really care about this, do it. Get it out there. give it a chance for people to see it. Whether it sells 10 copies or 10 million, the right audience will find it. And that's really important.
Absolutely, absolutely. You've just got to have that courage, like you say, to do it, and like the courage of your own convictions, and to, like, if you feel the call, then there's a reason for that. So yeah, do it, do it. That's what we need. Like, we need these books, these
It's
voices.
tough because it's a time when there's a lot of fear, especially here,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of reluctance to speak out, and that's part of the trouble that we're seeing with the so-called liberals in government. The whole system has been set up so that they're running entirely on the money that they get from their campaigns.
yeah.
And that's a huge amount of money. I mean, you think about it from a business point of view, that being president of the United States is the least possible cost effective thing to ever do.
Yeah.
Does it cost what, $1 billion now to run for president? I don't know, some insane amount.
It's crazy.
And you get what, 400,000 a year for 4 years, and then your pension for the half that for the rest of your life. Yeah, that doesn't add up very well.
No.
So there's a lot of motivations that are just so heavily financial at this point,
Yeah.
because otherwise it makes it so hard to run.
Yeah.
And occasionally we see exceptions. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I believe her last name is, did a lot of basically walking around the neighborhood to talk to people.
Yeah.
And that's what's needed here in Hawaii to run for office, is basically going out and meeting the people.
Yeah.
And so, that's intimidating for some of us who are basically very shy.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I get that. It's like a barrier. Well, so many barriers to entry. It's like, how can this happen? Yeah.
Those are some of them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, I am so grateful. Like I said, Jennifer, I'm grateful for our connection. I'm grateful that we met way back in 2018, and that you are part of the Unbound Press family of authors. And thank you for writing this book. I'm excited to see, it go out into the world and the impact that it's going to have. As you said there at the end, the right people will find it. Those who need to find this book will find it. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a complete honor and a joy to be associated with you, and all the wonderful ladies that are publishing with you and putting out all these incredible different perspectives. It's like, because we really, really need that, ability to express things that are really important to us, that are not necessarily, oh, well, here's the 15th novel I've written in this series, and it follows almost exactly the same as the other 14 novels, but I'm going to make $1 million off of it, so I don't care.
Exactly. Yeah, we're not here for that. We're definitely not here for that. Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you for staying up to have this conversation with me. You can go to bed now, Jennifer. And oh, yeah, thank you. And let's see what this book wants to do.
All right. Thank you so much. My pleasure.